something to keep in mind. If you were pulled home by whatever happened, it's likely our target was as well. It's also likely he's having as much trouble leaving as you are.
Oh, yes!
Rick and Morty Season 6 Episode 1 has finally dropped on Adult Swim, and it has Rick and Morty picking up after Evil Morty has destroyed Portal interdimensional travel, and they're dying, referencing Iron Man and Avengers Endgame. I think this episode starts off Season 6 with a pretty big bang, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of backstory on it that gives you a little bit of detail on Rick and his relationship with his dead wife. A lot happening in this episode, and I think it's setting up this season to where we're going to finally have that Rick versus Killer Rick storyline come to fruition. I think it's interesting to have Rick come in and not be able to do his normal portal travel. That's kind of like the Deus Ex Machina of the entire show, is whenever there's an issue, you can always just jump to a different reality, or there's some way to fix it with that. And this episode kind of takes it back to everyone's going back to their original timelines, proving that this Morty is not C-137's Morty, and that Morty is actually the Morty of Killer Rick, which I think adds to a lot of layers to C-137's Rick and Morty's relationship.
I thought it was really dark for a Rick and Morty episode with how he's got Diane, how he's gotten her haunting him, and you know how he's really rough on other characters in the show. But it shows out how difficult he can be on himself, knowing that he can never have any comfort or closure over the situation because he still blames himself for it.
I like this episode. It was a bit busy for me. I agree with what Corey said. Hearing Rick interact with his dead wife has always been interesting to me because it feels like we don't really get to see a lot of humanity in Rick very often. But when we do, it seems to be filtered a lot through those experiences with her. So any more information that I get about that, I'm always happy. I laughed a lot throughout this episode, which Rick and Morty is like, when I say depth, I don't necessarily mean like deeper thematic things, but there's just so much like structure to it in the way that it's written that you can almost get, it almost can feel like it's not a comedy show at times with how much it's going on. It's gotten so big.
The way that the show is able to have very serious implications and make a joke out of those things, like the implication that they all know they're going to revert to a different timeline that's not the one that they're already in, yet they're all just like, yep, just another day of being Rick's fucking family. It's so fucking hilarious. I love that Morty has to go back to Cronenberg world again, and then to find out that it's just his dad. His dad is the most successful at being a person in a world that's completely fucked, and he's like the only person alive in that world. That Rick gets to come back at the after credit scene, and you kind of have that dynamic of, you think that Cronenberg Jerry is gonna end up teaming up with Killer Rick, and then you see Killer Rick, nah, he doesn't want a team. I like that evil, the dichotomy of that and Evil Morty, where Evil Morty actually has a plan. It seems like Killer Rick is literally just the most jaded of all the Ricks. I like that C-137 Rick in this episode, when he sees, he has like a little glimpse of like, well, Killer Rick has to go back to his original world, so let's go get that motherfucker. And he kind of has that moment with Morty where it's like, if you don't care though, we should just go back and we should just get back to the normal plot line. But then you also have like 1,000 Marvel references, Batman references, like the references in this season. If this means anything for the rest of the season, we're gonna see a lot of references moving forward with this.
Rick pretending to not know who Iron Man is one of the funnier parts of the episode for me. I don't know why. It's just like, it's like Morty said, like, who is that for? Like, why are we, like, what's the point of this?
I do like the callback to Space Beth and Earth Beth and their, like, I guess, competition on who's like the better Beth, even though they have a completely different skill set. I love the vending machine with Summer, with all the Marvel references. I don't know how many people know this watching Rick and Morty, but so many Rick and Morty writers jump over to like the MCU and Marvel Studios writers. It's like the guy that writes Loki was from Rick and Morty. And it makes sense because Loki has multi-dimensional story plot lines.
I was going to say, yeah, a lot of exercise with convoluted timelines and multi-realities and stuff. That makes sense, yeah.
By having Summer have Wolverine claws, the vending machine has like a Magneto helmet. It has the Mjolnir from Thor, and has Cyclops' visors in the vending machine. So the Easter eggs all throughout this episode, I'm sure if you were able to like go frame by frame, there's actually a lot going on. I wish they would have like toned it back just a little bit to like really lean into the ramifications of Evil Morty and what he's done. But I do think that we're going to see a lot more of that throughout this season. Like, how fast is it going to take for Rick to get the portal index back up and running? Will other Ricks be the like successor to that, or will it like solely rely on C-137? Like, there's a lot of stuff that they can jump on, but the Citadel of Ricks is gone, and most of those Ricks are dead now. Are the Ricks that are alive the ones that aren't associated with the Citadel of Ricks? So I'm interested to see where this goes for C-137. You know, there was already a finite amount of realities they could jump to that were similar to their own. Now they're in the Parmigianian fucking timeline. You can't say Parmesan, right? Like, if that's like the one thing that's different in your timeline, I consider that a win. But how many more chances do they get? You know, they're going to have to eventually jump into a timeline that something really, really fucked up happens. Like, there's not going to be pizza in one of these timelines, and Rick's going to be fucking pissed. But I almost think that Rick's going to be looking for C-137 Rick. And instead of us trying to find Evil Morty, it's going to be the other way around. And to see C-137 Rick be put in a corner like that and have to fight somebody that's just as dastardly as him, you know, at the end of this episode, he says he's the real deal. But throughout these previous seasons, C-137 Rick has been considering himself the Rickest Rick. So this could be the Rick that challenges the Rickest Rick, and that'll be the season's story, I do believe. So if we had to score our reaction to this season 6 opener, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. You know, it was good, it was funny. It had a lot going on. I do wish it took a little more time to flesh out the gravity of what happened with Evil Morty. You know, I'll say from other season openers, this is one of the weaker ones for me, actually. I almost feel like they should have had like an hour-long season opener and really like show the gravity of not having the portal gun and kind of getting into the philosophy, because there was 3 different plots going on in this one 20-minute episode. And there's usually just an A and B plot at the most.
I think 8 out of 10 is perfect. Similar opinions as used, where it felt a bit busy to me. Felt like, you know, the C storyline might have been a bit too much. I think I generally like Rick and Morty sticking with the A and B. That might be a reflection on me and my peanut brain more so than the show itself. But I had a good time watching it. I thought it set up a lot of things. It was very, very funny to me, which to me is always like the focal point of Rick and Morty. So yeah, I think 8 out of 10 is perfect. I'm excited to see where they go. I enjoy their ability to pivot from like something that feels very connected and cohesive to a more procedural type of show, with each episode kind of having its own thing. I think it's really cool how they're able to pivot seamlessly between that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I just the same thing that you guys were saying. Just, it was a lot going on. There's a lot going on. It was a good episode. It was still funny. It was still Rick and Morty, but there's like 3 or 4 different things going on. There's a couple of Jerrys, there's a couple of Beths, and then there's 2 Ricks, which we're used to a bunch of Ricks. When you start throwing in extra other characters, it just gets to where it's just too much for me. But it also took me watching it twice to even understand the killer Rick being the other Rick at the end. It took until the second watch for me to even catch on to that. Like, I just feel like there was so many other things going on before getting to that point. And that was like an after credit scene too. So when you get to you watch the whole episode, you watch the credits, you're like, all right, I'm done. And then it shows him again. It's like, man, it's more content even in the after credit scene. I just felt like it was busy, but not a bad episode. Not a bad episode.
Are you happy that Rick and Morty's back? Did you enjoy this season 6 opener? We'd love to know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you're new to the Dork Side, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be covering Rick and Morty weekly every single week. And make sure you turn on notifications, because we are going to be reviewing the Barbarian horror movie coming out this Thursday, and we're going to have a video coming out by Friday. So you want to make sure you watch that. And until the next time, guys, peace.